How's it going, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen? This is episode, if I can talk, episode 1 of the Thursday Night Throwdown. That is going to be my biggest thing I try to do is slow down when I talk. But anyways, I am excited. It is episode 1 of the Thursday Night Throwdown. Myself, I am Chris Maloney. I've been a wrestling fan probably 40 years for what they say. Rumor has it I couldn't sleep one night. My dad was watching wrestling in the other room. Andre the Giant was on TV. And and that's how I became a wrestling fan and been a hardcore wrestling fan ever since. Here tonight, Shawn Bates of the Scumbags of Wrestling. Introduce yourself, Shawn.
Hey, I'm Shawn. That's Chris said, Scumbags of Wrestling. And been a fan since September 86, when Savage broke Steamboat's neck with the bell, and the rest is history.
Yeah, so Andre the Giant to Macho Man to all the back stories of the 70s and the 80s, which made us wrestling fans. So it kind of gives away our ages as well. I mean, 43 for myself, 43 for Shawn, a couple weeks apart, I do believe. Isn't that right?
Yep.
So
it's under 2 weeks.
Yeah, so guys, what we're looking at is every Thursday night, probably around 8 o'clock. You might have the odd occasion where we go at 7 or 9, depending on scheduling and everything else. But for the most part, it's going to be 8 till 9 every Thursday night. The main reason for that is because of the fact when you look at wrestling, you got NXT UK that takes place in the afternoon, and that's pretty much it for Thursdays. I mean, Thursday used to be a heavy night as far as wrestling goes. Not anymore. So what's the perfect time to do, a podcast, a video cast, or whatever you want to call this, is Thursday nights. So anyway, Shawn's been a loyal fan, a loyal friend for, quite a long time. So, first episode is going to be the two of us just talking wrestling stuff that we've seen this past week. Anything big that we think's going on. One of the big focal points, every podcast, every video cast that we do is going to be the Canadian independent wrestling scene. We're both London, Ontario, so a lot of shows that come to London or in and around London, we try to hit. Saying that, Windsor, Chatham, St. Thomas, Tillsonburg, Toronto. What's the farthest you've ever gone for an independent show in Canada?
Probably Toronto. Yeah, I've hit a bunch of those ones. Windsor, so they're same distance apart, basically. But we did go to Listowel, which is middle of nowhere, basically, in Ontario, at least southwestern Ontario for Midwestern wrestling. And so, yeah, some distance we're willing to go at. Why not?
Yeah, and that's independent as well as, and now I know you've gone further than me as far as pro wrestling goes. What's the furthest you've gone as far as a pro show goes?
Probably Pittsburgh. And
now, correct me if I'm wrong, but you were at, was it SmackDown last week or was it the week before?
Actually, last Friday. I was in Windsor for Christmas with my wife, and our in-laws obviously are there, and didn't really realize what was going on. And somehow it popped up that SmackDown was in Detroit. So last minute, I got a upper level ticket, really steep in the Little Caesars Arena, but got a ticket and watched SmackDown.
And you came back and you're still alive.
Yeah.
Never been to Detroit, but I hear it's a rough neighborhood. But you've been there quite a few times because you also went for WrestleMania.
I went, WrestleMania 23. Also, the first Over the Limit and one of the Raws.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because you mentioned WrestleMania 23. One of the main events featured somebody we'll be talking about further on down in the show here, and that's Bobby Lashley, that was the Trump one, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That was the whole McMahon versus Trump haircut thing.
Yep.
Yeah. So anyways, we won't waste any more time talking about ourselves, but what we're going to do is get into some wrestling here. First thing I want to talk about is what's on the agenda coming up this weekend. And for the first time ever, it's Wrestle Kingdom 14, but further than that, it's a 2-part show. And the rumor has been that the show was big enough in Japan. Why not go and try to, do you see that, big in Japan? I think I said that. Yeah. So anyways, they wanted to make it a 2-part show to see, because the fact is it was a lot of matches. I think last year they had 13, 14 matches. Fans are there, and they're there for a duration. And as North Americans, we understand what it's like to watch a long wrestling show. Shawn and I both were at SummerSlam last year. That was a long show. We were at NXT the night before. That was a long show. And, Japan was one of those things, hey, why not break up this show into 2 parts? And they actually have. So they've got Wrestle Kingdom 14 taking place this coming Saturday morning. I think it's 1 o'clock in the morning for us. Next day, I think it's 3:00 in the morning. So that's part 2 of Wrestle Kingdom 14. And then on the 6th, which is that Sunday? Or is that Saturday? No, that's the Monday.
Monday.
That would be Monday, yeah. So Monday has New Year's Dash, which usually takes place the day after Wrestle Kingdom when it's just a solo show. So saying that, the big focus this coming weekend is going to be Wrestle Kingdom. And it's saying that there are some big matches taking place that, I mean, as a wrestling fan, as a longtime wrestling fan, I am interested in. I'm not going to go through the entire card. I'm just going to go through a couple matches. Shawn, just get your thoughts on some of these. First of all, maybe I'll get your thoughts on the retirement of Jushin Thunder Liger after all these years. Now, his final match is taking place on Sunday at Wrestle Kingdom Part 2. But your thoughts on Liger finally hanging them up, and is he hanging them up? Because you understand this is somebody we saw at Madison Square Garden in that surprise battle royal with the Great Muta, still looking as good as he always has. So your thoughts on Liger finally saying goodbye?
Well, he has had a long career and a very decorated career, whether it's WCW or everywhere else, holding all the light heavyweight titles at one point. When I first saw him in the 90s. And yeah, to have the long career that he's had so far and what he's been doing in his going out to retirement, it's been really good. The multiple matches and the sort of send-off that he's doing, I'm hoping that this actually is a legit retirement, and wish him the best. And, he's got definitely a legacy that as long as the quality is still up there, this weekend, he's going to go out still on top and not be a shell of himself.
Yeah, I have to totally agree. I was just going to say, we get our first comment, Billy Anderson saying, hey, and then from there, saying Happy New Year to both of us. So Happy New Year there, Billy Anderson. Assuming he's part of your Scumbags group. Eh?
Yeah, he's part of Scumbags. And actually, there was another comment that I ended up checkmarking, because Midwestern Wrestling, I'm going to assume Doug, maybe Clarence, are watching with us, and they enjoyed the shout out to Listowel. So
yeah, I gotta say it's a little more professional and a little bit more quiet, this setting right here, without Jordan James screaming in the background behind us. But
true.
Anyways, yeah, it's now not saying anything much, but Jordan, as long as you're clean and sober, be part of the show anytime you want to be. But I'll let Shawn set that up sometime down the road. So we go from Jordan James back to Jushin Thunder Liger, and I mean, very cool that he's finally hanging them up on his terms. The last thing you want to see is Goldberg Undertaker type match, you know what I mean? And Liger's one of those guys that you connect with because of the fact he was 80s wrestling, he was 90s wrestling, he was part of the Brian Pillman storyline back then, and all of a sudden, I think it was Brian Pillman's son, Junior, who was saying that it was such an honor to be able to wrestle this guy, you know what I mean? So to know that both Pillmans had actually wrestled the same guy was kind of cool. But I'm going to go into some of the other matches on the show here, just to get your thoughts, Shawn. I'll just name the match and just get your thoughts just on that match as it is. What do we got here?
I warn you, I'm not following New Japan too much, but some of the matchups, yeah, I've heard of.
So I guarantee you definitely heard of this match. IWGP US Heavyweight Championship match is a Texas death match. Lance Archer taking on Jon Moxley. Moxley is the challenger in this one. Now, if he does win, it'd be his second reign, because he has been champ once. Who do you think's going to take this one?
Well, if I recall right, the reason why he wasn't or isn't champion is because of the hurricanes or something. Couldn't allow him to get to Japan, and that's why the title was declared vacant. And Juice Robinson and Archer fought for the vacant title. Archer picked it up, and now the winner of this match with Ambrose and Archer is going to go against Juice Robinson on day 2.
Yeah, you are correct.
I can almost see Archer dropping the title to Ambrose, which will allow the original match of Juice Robinson and Ambrose to actually happen. Whether Juice gets back the title, that's a different story. I guess it all depends on the relationship Ambrose or Moxley keeps with Japan.
Yeah, you're right. And it is Japanese booking. So, I mean, they like to, if there was a match set up 10 years ago, they're going to try to put it on, as best they can. But you're right about that. I think it is going to come down to Moxley and Juice in night 2. I think it's night 2. I'm just going to verify that, but I'll get your thoughts on next match. And now I don't know how much you know about Will Ospreay, but he's defending against Takahashi. Takahashi was injured, I think, I know it was over a year. I think it was almost close to 2. I don't know how much you know about Takahashi, but he's basically very similar personalities, Shinsuke Nakamura. But your thoughts on Ospreay, whether or not he's going to lose this IWGP Junior Heavyweight Championship, based on the fact there has been a lot of rumors that he's going to go up to the next level, which is the heavyweight division. And with Kota Ibushi challenged for that title, I mean, do you see Ospreay losing it to Takahashi with the whole big support system he's got behind him right now because he hasn't wrestled in like forever?
Well, it make a good comeback story for Takahashi. I don't know how much New Japan is into the whole good feel-good storyline type deal over the quality of wrestling, which, in all honesty, quality of wrestling is huge in Japan and is actually better seen than having soap opera type stories. But it would make a good feel-good story to start 2020 with, if Takahashi took the title.
Yeah, my pick for that one's Takahashi as well. And last 2 matches of this night. Now, I don't know if you heard, but New Japan's finally doing a WrestleMania 6 type thing where one guy is going to come out as champion for the Intercontinental and the Heavyweight. Now, it's not taking place this night, but the setup, the start of this is taking place. And first match, you're going to see Jay White as champion, as the Intercontinental champion, taking on Tetsuya Naito. Naito is former champion, obviously. I'm going to go to the next match. I'll get your thoughts on just who the 2 are that you think are going to go into the finals there. Last match of the night, which is the main event for Wrestle Kingdom Night 1, is Okada taking on Ibushi. Okada is the champion. Kota Ibushi, who people are familiar with the Cruiserweight Classic. He is the G1 Climax 29 winner. He's taking on Okada, challenging him for the title. So of those 4 guys, Jay White, Naito, Okada, and Ibushi, who do you see winning between White and Naito? Who do you see winning between Okada and Ibushi to set up that final?
I can see possibly Naito advancing and probably going against Ibushi.
So Naito versus Ibushi. All right, my pick on that one is I got to go with Ibushi because I feel it's his time, especially with the fact that Omega took off last year. I'm going to go the opposite of you, though, with the other one. I'm going to say Jay White versus Kota Ibushi in that main event on, I think it's Wrestle Kingdom 2, Night 2, as far as that title goes. So kind of differ a little bit. We just got another comment there. I'm trying to multitask the best I can. I will get better. John Siegfried, Happy New Year. Missed you at Tyson's last night, Shawn.
Yes.
Oh, the wrestling school.
Yeah, over at Tyson Duke's Wrestle Factory. Just been so busy, unfortunately. Just taking a moment. I haven't been totally into the whole wrestling world for the last 2 weeks-ish. I had a death in my family of my 95-year-old grandmother. So I'm trying to catch back up, and this is an awesome way on night 1 of Thursday Night Throwdown to be able to do that and get back to our regular stuff with the Wrestle Factory and the podcast. So a lot of things coming up, which we can talk about at the end of the show, but for Scumbags coming up this weekend.
Yeah, and that is the one thing cool about wrestling is it kind of brings everybody together no matter what's got, kind of going on in their lives. So anyways, going to night 2, and not as big as far as your matches go. I mean, there are some pretty good matches taking place, as you had already mentioned. So Juice Robinson facing the winner of Mox versus Lance Archer. Kenta's taking on Hiroki Goto. And then basically actually, I shouldn't say that. Sorry, I jumped the gun on that one. 3 big matches taking place. So first one is up here. So retirement match is taking place. Liger and Sano with Yoshiki Fujiwara. I know the name Fujiwara, taking on Lee and Takahashi. Liger's final match, and he kind of handpicked Takahashi and Dragon Lee. So, Shawn, do you see Liger and Japan ending on Liger's, saying goodbye on a good note? Or do you say, hey, he's going to put over one of these guys, one of those guys going out of business, say Kurt Angle style, to be able to say, hey, thank you very much. I just can't do this anymore. These guys are too good. And then is he taking the win or taking the loss in this one?
Yeah, tough call because he is a legend, but most of the time when you do retire, they expect you to put over your opponent and go out counting the lights. And then they get an opportunity to celebrate with the crowd afterwards and thank them before leaving the ring fully.
Yeah, so another highlight of this night is Jericho and Hiroshi Tanahashi. Now, the backstory to this one is basically, and this I don't think was set at the beginning, but it's set now, is that if Tanahashi beats Jericho, Jericho will give him an AEW championship match. It's going to lead me into my next series of topics, so don't say too much about this, but do you think Tanahashi is actually going to beat Jericho in this one?
Depends on the relationship between AEW and New Japan going forward. If they do work out something, then there is a chance that Jericho could lose and at least do the payoff of that sort of extra stipulation. So as it stands right now, I think Jericho will win.
So you're going for Jericho on this one?
Yeah.
All right. So as a New Japan fan, as somebody who wants to see it happen, I want to see Tanahashi beat Jericho, which I think will explode the internet, so to speak. And then last match of the night. Now you had picked, what was it, Kota versus Naito?
Yeah.
So who do you see winning to combine both of those titles?
Probably Ibushi.
So you want Ibushi. Okay, so that is the one thing we can both agree on, is the fact is Kota Ibushi, we're picking night 2 of Wrestle Kingdom 14 to come out victorious, holding both belts. So Wrestle Kingdom taking place, like I said, this coming weekend, Saturday, Sunday, and the New Year's Dash is taking place on the Monday. Bell time is 6:30, so I believe we're 14 hours behind that. So anybody who's looking to watch it live on New Japan World, you are looking at 4:30 in the morning on Monday. So good luck with that one. But nothing has been announced. Nothing's going to be announced until basically that day, because what happens is the Wrestle Kingdom Fallout will, kind of guide this one to be what it is. The only thing we do know is that if you're watching on New Japan World, Jushin Thunder Liger's final ceremony is taking place. So it waited for the fans, the talent, New Japan Pro Wrestling to be able to say goodbye properly to Jushin Thunder Liger. The same way WWE has, and guys like Ric Flair retiring. What was it, WrestleMania 24, I want to say. But it should be good to see. Somebody had posted someplace about whether or not it's okay to cry. I think it might have been Brad Myers, actually, from Smash Wrestling. It says it's okay to cry when Liger retires or something like that. And it's like, yeah, as long as you got enough Kleenex, go ahead, So, but definitely an end coming up this coming weekend. And in saying that, like I said, I want to talk about something else. Now, Jericho is the biggest. I'm trying to think of the proper word for it. He's one of the greatest guys to be able to play people on the internet. Agree or disagree?
Yeah, he knows how to reinvent himself and also be current and get people's attention. So, like, all around right now, he is the top guy. And it's amazing at his age. Like, before, when we were younger in the 80s, seeing some guy in his 40s, we're thinking, oh, dude, he's really old, and felt older than even 40. Now, guys who are in their 40s and nearing 50, in Jericho's case, are top draws and are not seeming to be old and washed up.
And he's when you look at Jericho, you think of the fact he's still in good shape. Like, he still takes care of himself. Other than having too much of the bubbly and liking his vodka and stuff like that, he's looks good for his age. I've seen guys who
he is looking a little Mickey Rourke-ish, though.
Yeah, well, I mean, but I think that comes down to the hair, though. He cuts off all that hair again, and he probably look a heck of a lot better. But anyways, as far as the Jericho talk goes, he knows how to create hype, and that's one of the things he has always been great at, no matter what promotion or how old he's been. In saying that, I want to see the AEW New Japan feud. I want to see the AEW New Japan hook up for even one pay-per-view. Just because of the fact that AEW, in my opinion, doesn't have a lot of steam going on right now. Excuse me.
I think you have a point there that they've sort of a little bit lost some steam, and not necessarily because of NXT. I don't think they're living up to the expectations or the reputation that they said they were going to do. They wanted to be an alternative to WWE, yet how can you be an alternative when you're not giving anybody a real focus? For starters, yeah, you're giving people matches and not doing commercial breaks and doing the picture-in-picture thing. But, unfortunately, we know the Dark Order as Super Smash Brothers, but they're not getting over to the mainstream fans. And that's what you're now targeting is these new fans. And they had that close out a AEW show. And then you have all this new talent, but you're jamming so much down everybody's throat without giving any character development. And people are walking away from that. And how many shows have ended also in a brawl? Or finished because they're relying on going right to the very last minute. They need to refocus what their actual objective is and be an alternative to WWE, be an alternative to NXT. Even NXT seems to be the alternative that everybody's looking for. It's different than SmackDown. It's different than Raw. It's now even different than AEW. And it's more action, less storyline stuff going on, and less talking than even AEW has. And that's what, in a way, gave NXT the rub a couple of weeks ago, where they had 100,000 more viewers than AEW on a week that both productions were giving sort of pay-per-view quality shows.
Yeah, you know what? I completely agree. It kind of reminds me, and not so much 100%, but it kind of reminds me when WCW needed to sit back and refocus, and the whole Bischoff thing that was supposed to happen and it didn't happen. And if that had to happen, and they come back and they rebrand themselves and they take that time to be able to say, hey, we're not doing so well. What else do we need to do? Here you get to show a company that does one show plus the YouTube series every single week. I was thinking to myself when I was watching it last night, I was thinking, here's Jon Moxley, here's Pac. These guys have been main event caliber matches at WrestleMania. Now, all of a sudden, they've got like 500,000 people that are watching them on a weekly basis. That can't be sitting well with them. They're getting paid well. They're able to do their own, their own characters without having to do like a PG-13 style, guy. But the fact is, how many people are actually watching? You know what I mean?
Yeah. They're excelling. That's the one area where AEW is excelling, is they're allowing their people to be characters and be themselves, and they're not scripted. They get bullet points, and that's what WWE is not doing, and it's all one voice and very forced, it seems. But other than that, what do they got?
Yeah. So my question to you is this: with AEW not doing as well as the hype was, now, this is something where I saw a clip last night of them all looking at their cell phones and that AEW logo popping up for the first time and be like, holy crap, this is actually happening, to a year later now. And it's like, if I'm home on a Wednesday night, I'm debating on whether or not I'm going to watch it live or just watch it on the PVR. Would you bring in a company like Impact Wrestling to help with the ratings as far as AEW goes? Because when I say that, Brian Cage recently put up a post, I think it was Twitter or Instagram, saying the match that never happened was Omega versus Brian Cage. And do fans want to get to see it? And saying that, do you put them with New Japan instead, knowing the legacy some of these guys had over there, like the Kenny Omegas, like the Best Friends, like, who am I missing? The Young Bucks, Hangman Page, all those guys. So which way do you go? Do you continue to go with the guys that you've signed and maybe sign on like a Killer Cross at this point, or do you try to group up with, like, say, a Ring of Honor who's suffering right now, or New Japan Pro Wrestling, or an Impact?
I wouldn't bring on anybody new, really, because they have oversaturation of talent who are not getting over because nobody knows who they are, because you're not seeing them week to week. But that said, they have a good working relationship, or those guys did have a good working relationship with New Japan. If I was going to team up with anybody, I would go with New Japan, because of any other company that's not WWE or NXT, for that matter, New Japan has the most credibility. Maybe if you're going to stay in North America, I would go with Ring of Honor, But even Ring of Honor right now is very weak. And in comparison, maybe even to an Impact, they are almost neck and neck on the bottom of the barrel of North American wrestling. And the only reason why I say Impact is down that low is because they still have the stench of TNA. I've seen posts saying, this was great about Impact Wrestling. But then in some comments, they're like, oh, yeah, TNA this, TNA that, because people still associate the same stuff and are not willing to drop the TNA idea, the TNA name, or anything like that. And that's an albatross that is keeping Impact Wrestling down. They needed to have done what you sort of suggested WCW needed to do. Had Bischoff been successful, is shut down and totally rebrand, not even do Impact and rise up as something else, not trying to keep that relationship going and any connection to the old TNA. But until they disassociate themselves and become a different company, they're always going to be considered TNA.
Yeah,
and stench to it.
I was gonna say the tough part is, all of a sudden 2019 ends and everybody's doing match of the decade, this and that. I almost called them TNA, but Impact Wrestling's match of the decade was Jeff Hardy versus Matt Hardy. Both guys contracted now with WWE, so it wasn't a Samoa Joe, it wasn't AJ Styles, it wasn't a Kurt Angle even, or Sting. It was Hardy versus Hardy. So it's tough to see. It would be like the WWE back in the 90s and saying, hey, what was the greatest match back in the 90s? And somebody not keeping and saying Austin, or if, say, for example, The Rock, Undertaker, Triple H, any of those guys in that mix. You know what I mean? If they had said like Ken Shamrock versus Val Venus, it'd be like, excuse me, what the hell, But I think you're right. I think a lot of these brands are very, not even secondary at this point, because I think, to me, you've got WWE with NXT, then you've got AEW, and then you've got Impact, and then you've got like MLW, you've got ROH, kind of scraping the bottom of the barrel at this point. And I don't know what the right answer is to try to set them back on fire. And I don't know if they can. I don't, maybe it's just one of those things that it's past news, and wrestling and life moves on. But I guess we will see. Anybody tuning in, you are watching Thursday Night Throwdown. This is episode 1 of our show. We're going to go every week, Thursday nights, 8 o'clock. That is the plan, talking about pro wrestling as well as Canadian independent wrestling. My name is Chris Maloney. I am your host. I've got Shawn Bates of the Scumbags of Wrestling alongside me. And thank you for listening, and thank you for watching. And if you're tuning into this broadcast after it's ended, thanks for picking up on either YouTube or Facebook. As well as we're going to try to do an audio version on Anchor, which thanks for Shawn for pointing that out to me years and years ago, seemingly. But anyways, we're going into another topic here. So one of the things I want to talk about next, and you had mentioned Dark Order, and I think we'll maybe talk about those, that group and the Butcher and the Blade and everything else on another show. But I want to get into kind of the WWE portion of the show at this point, because something kind of rang a bell last night. And so if you're watching AEW, Britt Baker had come out and she was kind of ripping on Riho for not being there to defend that championship, week in, week out. And Britt was like, you know what, here I am wrestling. I have my own practice as well. I'm here. I'm dedicated, blah, 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 blah. And, Riho basically sounded like, she was the female version of Brock Lesnar. Shawn, your thoughts on 2020 happening and Brock Lesnar still being champion, somebody like Riho still being champion, not defending their title, not being seen every single week on the shows. Is that, as a wrestling fan, is that something that matters to you?
It's a tough question, to be honest, because you don't want to over saturate your championships, but they weren't done that way in the 80s and 90s, well, 80s especially, when you would see Hulk Hogan appear every once in a while on, say, Saturday Night's Main Event and actually defend the title, but he was appearing on, say, Brother Love's show or the Funeral Parlor, so he's still showing up. Now, if the champions are still doing that or doing some sort of tag thing to keep their face out there, I don't need to see a title match all the time, but they should still kind of be there to be like, hey, I'm a champion, and I'm going to further my storyline without necessarily burning it out by wrestling every week.
Yeah, do you okay? So with regards to Brock Lesnar, do you think it's all name value? Do you think he's in McMahon's pocket and that's why he can do what he's doing?
Unfortunately, at this moment, yeah. And that is kind of a sad situation that they haven't been able to create new talent that got over, like how Steve Austin and The Rock have. And right now, Brock Lesnar is that guy that is sort of over without being over just because of name value, because he went to the UFC as well. But they need to create new talent and then have that person be the champion and be there every week. Seth Rollins, Roman Reigns, they were that champion that was there every week, but fans turned on them. So where do you find the balance? I don't know.
So I'm kind of glad you brought that up because next person on the agenda is Drew McIntyre. Did you watch Raw this past Monday?
Yes, I did. And
So-
for some reason, a heel was in a 2-on-1 situation against two baby faces.
Yeah, but the thing is, McIntyre played like a baby face.
Yeah.
Right before he hit the Claymore kick, all of a sudden he's cutting them down 3-2-1, and then boom, he hits them. It puts them down like they're basically jobbers in the ring, and then pins them both. Former tag team champions. And somebody had pointed out, apparently last year at WrestleMania is when Ryder and Hawkins had actually won the titles. So the WrestleMania moment right there, and now all of a sudden they're jobbing on Raw to Drew McIntyre. Do you see Drew as somebody who can get over as far as WWE itself goes, or do you see him going in that same? And it's funny how I'm asking you this, because the fact is, when you look at Roman Reigns, you look at Seth Rollins, you look at Drew McIntyre, they almost look like clones of one another. But do you see something different from Drew McIntyre and his future as far as WWE performer goes?
I would like to say yes, because he definitely, after leaving WWE, changed his character, proved what he can do. But I don't know what the deal is. When he started in WWE, he was the next big thing, but they didn't follow through on it. Then he was there and part of 3MB, a jobber tag team, as you just mentioned, with Ryder and Hawkins, sort of deal. And now we're trying to take him seriously, but he gets up to the threshold and then they pull him back. And it's just like, why build him up if you're not going to fully pull the trigger? I would like to see it happen and see what could happen with him, but I don't think the people that higher ups have enough faith in him.
So fantasy booking, he wins the Royal Rumble, goes on to WrestleMania, he wins the championship. Are you a fan of that?
Yeah, because it's something different, and Drew McIntyre's there all the time.
So that happens, is he still going to be champion at SummerSlam?
Well, it depends on how things go, but I would at least stretch it out, give him a 6-month run, and like how they just did with Kofi.
Yeah, very true, very true. So we go from a guy like Drew McIntyre, who's still kind of fresh in the business, to somebody who's, and I didn't know this till yesterday, somebody who's been in the business, the Gordie Howe pretty much of wrestling. He's wrestled in 5 decades at this point, and I'm just going to I'll read this, just anybody who's watching, listening, just to see if they can pick up on who this is. Made his professional wrestling debut September 13th, 1988, defeating Bob Cook in a match for the Tampa-based Championship Wrestling from Florida. Promotion was renamed, blah, 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 blah. He goes on 1988, 1989, debuted in WCW, teamed with Kendall Windham. Undercard tag team called the Texas Broncos. Saw success against the Cruel Connection and the Commandos. No idea who the hell they are. First defeat came against the original Midnight Express. I thought this said Oriental Express. Original Midnight Express. And anyways, from there went to Japan and Memphis, and then from there went on to World Wrestling Federation, 1990-91. For those unaware who I'm talking about, that would be the one and only Dustin Rhodes, Gold Dust, who now has wrestled in each of the past 5 decades, starting 1988 all the way through to 2020. This guy has been around for seemingly ever, and he's one of those guys who you don't necessarily hear anything bad about there, Shawn. Surprised that he's made it as long as he has with the build, as well as the not the legacy, but the name he has behind him, because Dusty was a tough guy. When you watch Dusty matches or even the Goldust matches back in the 90s, his body should not be in this good a shape. I mean, what do you think keeps him going as long as he has been?
I think the fact that he ended up figuring out the path he was on was wrong, and he got himself clean and sober, and because of that, the guy who was Black Rain and looking really overweight, almost catching up to his dad, if not even further, but with his height, it wasn't as noticeable, carrying around a rat, that guy could have passed away long ago, but he got clean and sober, focused on his health, and whether he's doing DDP yoga and everything, he's got his sobriety, and he's like 20 years younger, and that's the key to why Dustin Rhodes is still wrestling today.
So will we see him wrestle in his 6th decade? Is he going to make it to 2030?
No. If he's smart, he should be winding down anytime, and I think this is what is going on with him right now. I kind of theorized that almost a year ago or so with respect to what's going on with him, his brother, and WWE for that matter, because if I recall right, Dustin had a longer contract than what it turned out to be with WWE, and somehow he was let go from his contract so that magically enough he was able to team with his brother at Double or Nothing. Now, obviously, the McMahons and Triple H, whoever that worked on releasing him, knew exactly where he was going to go and team with his brother and be a part of AEW. If they didn't care that much, or they were more concerned about the battle lines being drawn, they wouldn't have let him go. But there's a lot of respect between the McMahon family and the Rhodes family, and that's why even Cody doesn't even badmouth WWE like maybe other members of AEW will, because of that respect between the families. And WWE knew that this would mean a lot to Dustin to team with his brother and do what he's doing right now, and that's why they did release him. And he's in the shape that he's in right now. I would have kept him in WWE, but he's more useful where he is now and getting success.
Yeah, you're right. You're right about the respect thing. I think with regards to the Rhodes, the only time you've ever seen anything happen was that, what was it, the throne that had blown up because Cody had hit it with a sledgehammer or something like that.
Yeah,
one of the pay-per-views.
first All or Nothing,
But yeah, other than that, I can't think of anything I've ever seen where Cody's disrespected him. So much to the point that we're talking about Cody and Dustin. And then on the other side of things, WWE right now, NXT, just announced all the tag teams for the Dusty Classic about to take place. Shawn, are you aware of NXT, what happened last night?
Yeah, I saw some of the stuff that went on last night. It was a little bit of a review show, the awards, and they also announced the brackets for the Dusty Classic. And this time it's going to be one half being UK and the other half being regular NXT, so North American NXT.
Yeah, so I'll announce the match is going to take place, and then maybe Shawn, get your thoughts on just who you think is going to win the whole tournament, or what two teams you think is going to come down to from NXT UK to NXT. So you got Imperium, Marcel Barthel, and Fabian Eichner, I think is how you pronounce it, against the Forgotten Sons of Wesley Blake and Steve Cutler. Matt Riddell and Pete Dunne taking on Mark Andrews and Flash Morgan Webster. Grizzly Young Veterans taking on Kushida and To Be Determined. UK champions Gallus, Mark Coffey, and Wolfgang taking on NXT Tag Team Champions, The Undisputed Era, Kyle O'Reilly and Bobby Fish. So you got champions versus champions. You've got Kushida with a mystery partner, and you've got Imperium in there as well. And then Matt Riddell and Pete Dunne should be an interesting combo. Shawn, I guess two questions for you. Who takes it all? And who do we see, if anybody at all, Kushida tag up with?
I could see Kushida teaming up with maybe Keith Lee.
That'd be interesting.
And that'd be a good combination to go to the finals with. I'm not sure about this combination with Pete Dunne and Matt Riddle, because unfortunately, I think, was it last year or two Dusty Rhodes Classics ago? Might have been 2 ago. Pete Dunne teamed up with Roderick Strong, and that didn't work out well for him on that one. Gallus definitely is a threat in there, so that's where possibly Kushida has the problem with advancing, because isn't it Gallus against Kushida and his partner?
No, Gallus taking on Undisputed Era first round.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you've got Grizzly.
Okay. So yeah, they would meet in the semifinals then, which would
Yeah,
make sense
yeah. So
because Kushida had an issue with Gallus when they beat him up and took him out for a bit.
yeah, so if you look at it, if Kushida and this mystery partner goes on to second round, Gallus is potential for them. I would love to see on the other side of things Imperium take on Matt Riddell and Pete Dunne. I think that would be interesting.
Yeah,
I mean that would be one huge battle.
Because I don't see Forgotten Sons going anywhere.
No, right back to the indie scene. Anyways, I've heard a lot about those guys and the gimmick change and everything else, and nothing has ever worked for them. I separate them, try to put them on singles runs, whatever the case may be. And the one thing I was thinking about today actually was the fact is when you look at this, the Forgotten Sons are, who the heck are they? Wesley Blake. He was with Buddy Murphy at one time, wasn't he? Being managed by Alexa Bliss.
Yep.
That's that same guy, eh? So it's very interesting to see Buddy Murphy fighting a guy like Aleister Black on Raw, and a guy like Wesley Blake, pretty much being forgotten about. And this tag team did at NXT, but I mean that's just stating the obvious. Oh, sorry, I didn't catch it. What'd you say?
A Forgotten Son.
Oh yeah. It's like I said, stating the obvious. Anyways, we're going to touch on one more thing as far as WWE goes because we're running low on time. Shawn, thoughts on the Lana Rusev wedding and without cursing and swearing?
I couldn't believe I actually sat through that whole thing. Like I was looking at the timing and thinking, okay, this is going to be over. And for USA to stop doing the overrun for the longest time and then give this another 10 minutes, I don't know what USA was thinking, but I did also see a post that it got the most views.
Yeah, and Lana's been bragging about that like crazy too, eh?
Week. So I don't know who's watching this, but when they kept on bringing out different people saying, "Oh, I'm with this person. I was this person's ex. I was this person's ex," I'm like, I don't care. Really, like that just wasted time. There wasn't anything significant in the fact that they came out. And
so, are you surprised at what they did with Liv Morgan? I mean, all those Emirates type promos, and the next thing you know, she comes out to whatever,
Yeah, they need to explain that one because, okay, is she doing the Emelina thing or is she going to do something different? I saw this awesome video that somebody did, which made Liv Morgan actually into the Fiend, and the red lights and everything worked out well. And they just superimposed the Fiend face on Liv Morgan, and that would have been awesome because there was she'd even shown pictures of her almost going to do the Sister Abigail or be part of that, and then they did an Emelina thing.
Yeah, there was one of the wrestling reporters going off about that, saying how they had everything set up to make her Sister Abigail, and basically just destroyed it in a matter of seconds on Monday Night Raw. So, it's tough though because you can tell she's talented. You can tell she has a passion for the business, but I mean, it's creative, right?
Yeah. Also, where does this really go? Are they going to do a lesbian or bisexual thing? Which, fine, if they're going to do it, it is 2020, and that's part of society. There are trans, bi, gay, whatever sexualities are out there. That's reality, and if it's going to be part of the show, fine. But are they really that way in real life? Meanwhile, you have Sonya Deville, who is
I heard about that
person who could do a lesbian storyline because that's her real life. Instead of having two people who, one is clearly still married to Rusev, and Liv Morgan pretending to do a lesbian angle, why not just give it to your resident lesbian? And Sonya Deville actually have a storyline that is her.
Yeah, I heard she's PO'd about that too.
Yeah, it's like a slap in the face.
Yeah, well, for whatever reason, I heard they were supposed to do it with Mandy Rose and her, and then they said no, we're not doing it, and the next thing you know, they're doing it with Liv Morgan. So Anyways, well, it remains to be seen. I guess we'll have to tune into Raw on Monday just to find out where they're going to go with the storyline.
What if it was just a ruse and it's actually Rusev and Liv that are together, and Mandy isn't doing anything with Lana? But then, of course, since that happened, not sure if both of them have been posting pictures of them in the past, taking photos together to try and show that, yes, this actually happened. So I don't know whether they're going with it.
Yeah, it remains to be seen. But the one thing I don't understand, and Shawn had already said it, where the hell these viewers come from? Because they went 10 minutes over for this, but they won't go 10 minutes over for a great match happening. So we'll leave it at that for right now. Quickly want to go through the upcoming events coming up as far as pay-per-views coming for the month of January. Wrestle Kingdom, like I said, talked about this coming weekend, New Year's Dash on Monday. NXT UK TakeOver Blackpool 2 is taking place on the 12th. Impact Wrestling Hard to Kill on the 12th as well. NWA Hard Times taking place on the 24th. Royal Rumble on the 26th. AEW Revolution is their next pay-per-view. Would not happen until February. Shawn, any thoughts on any of these that are standing out to you? Are you happy to see the NWA television title be coming back?
It's something else to have out there. Like, I don't know if it's necessarily needed, but if it gives them a aspect to the TV show where every week there is going to be a title defense, not necessarily the women's tag or the world, but every week there's going to be a TV title. Sure, why not? They did obviously dig out the old belts or the old design and redo it. And yeah, Power is a show that actually is easy to digest because it's just bell to bell, 1 hour, and old school. I like that. Also looking forward to seeing if Impact Wrestling is going to actually pull the trigger and give a prominent men's title to the first female to ever hold a world title that isn't a designated women's world title. So it's after taking it from Sami Callihan.
Yeah, that'll be interesting as well. So, lots of time to talk about Hard to Kill coming up. I believe I said on the 24th, if that is correct. Nope, that was NWA Hard Times. No, Impact's only actually on the 12th. That's next week.
It is next week. We'll have to do it for next week's show.
That is New Year's hangover talking right there. Just a lot of. I've been off for almost 17 days. It's been enjoyable with pay at that, so it has been enjoyable. But my brain is no longer in work mode.
I go back to after over 2 weeks.
Oh, geez. Anyways, so we got about 12 minutes left. We're going to talk on Canadian independent wrestling right now. It's absolutely huge to see the amount of promotions that exist from coast to coast. Now, Shawn and I are very loyal followers of Smash Wrestling as well as other promotions out there. Midwestern Wrestling, we were at. See, that's still hard to say. It's been a couple months later. So Midwestern Wrestling. There we go. See, if I slow down, I can actually say things. That's just two of the promotions that we have followed. You've got PWA, which is now, was it 365 Wrestling? Is that what Eddie had turned it into?
Yeah, it's going to be 365 Wrestling, still in Kitchener and Guelph. They're going to be near the end of the month and the beginning of the month, I think next weekend, they're in BC. So they're, I think, still hitting the same areas. It's just they're revamping from PWA to 365.
Yeah, so the coolest thing about independent wrestling is they usually stick to an area. Smash has been good because the fact is they go from Toronto down the southwestern Ontario coast is what I like to call it. But anyways, Barrie Wrestling sticks to where they're at. A1, Alpha 1 Wrestling, same thing. Destiny Wrestling. You've got C4 up there in the Ottawa area. Shawn,
Chem Valley in Sarnia.
Yeah, I was going to say Chem Valley down in Sarnia there. So the coolest thing is if you're in an area, it's, don't think that you can't enjoy independent wrestling because you only have the one promotion hitting you. Nowadays, we live in a time where you can go on Facebook or YouTube, or whatever the case may be, and catch up on whatever you need to. It's different. Interesting for me to see a character like Tyson Dukes, for example, and all of a sudden he'll be wrestling in, say, for example, London here for Smash, and then all of a sudden go and the guy he just teamed with for Smash, he's facing in another promotion. So it's very interesting. You can kind of see how good they'd be, who they'd be, best suited with as far as competition or tag teams go and all this sort of stuff. Midwestern Wrestling was another one of those places. We saw different kind of matches take place that we kind of weren't used to, and it was kind of cool. So Canadian independent wrestling's strong no matter where you're at. I follow it as much as I can on, like I said, social media, Facebook, not just Ontario, but kind of all over Canada. I'm still learning about who some of the big names are, or the other provinces. I know some of the guys here in Ontario will travel to Quebec, on more than one occasion. I think last year, or the past 2 years at least, Cody Deaner has hit Saskatchewan, as well as, I want to say, Alberta. I think Tyson's done the same thing.
And they go east as well.
Yeah, and then out east as well. So it's a great time to be, like I said, Canadian independent wrestling fan. Shawn, what are you looking forward to coming up as far as shows go? Because you know a lot more about than I do than as far as this area goes. I will say this: is there anything taking place right now that you've heard of as far as Smash Wrestling and those tag team titles go?
Well, as far as what do you mean with the tag team title situation?
So the Revolt were stripped at the last show.
Yes.
But did the titles go back to Halal, or are they still up in the air?
They went back to Halal Beefcake because they
did go back.
Yeah, when they were out signing autographs at the end of Remix You a Merry Christmas, they were once again holding the gold.
I was hoping to see a tournament happen.
It was handed back to them after Jordan James was found to have a extra substance in his water bottle. And
it wasn't sugar.
No.
Anyways, and that too. It's interesting to see once you get following a promotion long enough to see storylines taking place. You, for example, know about Tyson students and how far they've come. I'll tell you this, and a true story right here. So I'm sitting there and I'm shopping at Masonville here in London. And we're taking a break. I think it was Boxing Day or whatever the case may be. And you can imagine how bad Masonville was on Boxing Day. So I'm sitting there with my wife, and we're sitting on the bench, and we're sitting right across from Shoppers, in between Shoppers and Starbucks. And sure enough, who do I see was Violet Lee, Vanessa Armstrong, for those who know her personally. Anyways, so I point her out, and I look at my wife, and I was like, hey, I said, can you guess that she's an independent wrestler? And my wife was like, she kind of just blends in. And I said, she is one of probably the best students that Tyson has had as far as charisma, marketability, passion, just the whole package. You know what I mean? But what's that?
Original Six.
Yes. And I told my wife, I said, but I shouldn't say the problem. As a wrestling fan, it's tough when somebody decides to hang him up, call it quits, take a break, whatever the case may be. But I was telling my wife, I was like, you know what? She is taking a break right now to focus on school and her family and her kids and everything else, and it's as much as she was getting that support, inside the ring and inside those buildings, she still had to put kind of, what would matter to her most, her career, her financial reasonings down the line to support her and her family, So I guess my question to you is this: is we know them as characters inside the ring, and somebody I think it might have been Sebastian Suave had posted on Facebook recently with regards to, thank you so much for 2019, 2020 is going to be better, this and that. And I had made a post comment back, and I was like, you know what, sometimes as wrestling fans, we take for granted what we see because we always think it's going to be there. With Violet Lee stepping down and Smash going on that temp hiatus, do you feel the same way as far as taking what we see for granted sometimes and thinking, it's always going to be there? If you wake up tomorrow and all of a sudden you read a post that says Sebastian's shutting down Smash, is it going to bother you, or is it going to be like, oh, well, there's another promotion that's going to be out there anyways?
I'd be very surprised by that, but sometimes you do need to reset and reevaluate where things are. As far as you said with Smash taking a little bit of a break, they probably took a huge hit. I don't know for certain, but I'm guessing SummerSlam weekend, they did 8 shows over 4 days, and a couple of them were jam-packed, like the Summit and Super Showdown. But when they brought in WXW, Progress, OWE, the lesser-known organizations over in this side of things, that's where they probably took a hit because they were paid a lot of higher end talent to come over here, but they didn't get the return from the fans' perspective of ticket buying.
So why do you think they do stuff like that?
Well, it was a perfect opportunity since it was SummerSlam weekend, and with OWE, they were getting exposure from AEW. Obviously, not enough exposure, but you gotta take a chance, and they took a chance. Was it profitable? Probably not. They were able to continue doing smash shows in smaller venues instead of being here in London for Music Hall or anywhere in Toronto for Phoenix, Rec Hall, or I forget the other place that they go to. But, costs are high for those type of venues. And they kept Smash alive and even lent out their tag team titles to Midwestern. So they didn't disappear. But sometimes you need to step back. Violet Lee is a example, as you said. Any good promoter will say, get your education, get your career in line, then do this wrestling. It's always going to be there, and one day it's not going to be there. What do you have left over? And so in this case, with her, she's making sure there's something to look forward to when that opportunity does fade away in wrestling. So regardless of it being an organization or an individual, you got to reset. But there's always stuff around.
I was going to say the big point as well is appreciate what you see while it's there.
Exactly.
And don't be afraid to walk out to a guy like Cody Dean or Tyson Dukes or Mike Rollins or whatever the case may be and buy one of their picks or buy, one of the t-shirts or whatever the case may be, because that's not only do you support them, but the fact is that's how they know that they're doing their jobs and they're doing they're doing what they're meant to be doing, and that's entertaining us as fans. It's funny how quickly an hour goes. Like a lot of topics I didn't run through, but
well, maybe
anyways,
it has to go more than an hour coming up if our topics are going to need it, and eventually we want to welcome in other people. So a 2-hour roundtable won't be out of the question, really.
Yeah, and if you look on the screen right now, that is the best way to reach the show. You can come on to Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, all social media, and hit me up through Messenger. But if you want to just send an email, Thursday Night Throwdown at outlook.com is the address. Let me know you want to be part of the show. Let me know what you want to see on the show. We can host up to 6 people at once. So I know Shawn, when he can be, he's definitely going to be a regular. But we'd like to have people from the Maritimes, BC, Alberta, Saskatchewan, Ontario, whether or not you're a fan, whether or not you're a wrestler. I want to get in I want to have the opportunity to interview promoters right before a show on the weekend to be able to hype up that show, to find out why they're doing the show, what made them get involved with the independent scene, stuff like that. So best way to reach right there. So Thursday Night Throwdown at outlook.com. At this point, like I said, I want to try to keep it in an hour. So we're going to go into just some goodbyes here. I'm going to switch some screens around just to give promotion over to Shawn there. I'm going to exit myself out. Shawn, what's the best way to get in touch with you, and what's your baby there on the internet?
Okay, well, there's so many things. Obviously, there's Scumbags of Wrestling. We have the page on Facebook. We post every day, including Wrestler of the Day, celebrating wrestlers' birthdays. And provided there's matches going on, and I've stopped by the Tyson Dukes Wrestle Factory, Fridays you can catch the production line and see the students of, the superstars of tomorrow, today, being done at the Wrestle Factory. And so that's also on our Facebook and YouTube channels, Scumbags of Wrestling. And yeah, so email me at scumbagswrestling@gmail.com for any comments, questions, concerns. We're all over the place. And I did tell Chris and a couple other people lately that maybe this week there's going to be a new video segment highlighting the events throughout Ontario in a week in advance. So you can check out any event in your area or hop in the car and hit a road trip. So as Chris just put up, it's the Scumbags Wrestling page on Facebook. And yeah, please join us. Scumbags.
Yeah, I've got to learn how to use that little mute button on the screen as opposed to the mic. Anyways, but yeah, the cool thing about the program that you're using is called StreamYard. We can sync to, I think, Twitter. So Twitter's Periscope. We can do YouTube, Facebook simultaneously. The more support that we get, the more I can throw it out there for pretty much everybody. But right now, we're going to strictly go YouTube as well as Facebook. And like I said, the shows will be available after we're done, and then the audio will be available probably a day later. But right there is you've got Shawn's group, the Scumbags of Wrestling. That's the best way to follow him. As he said, we are Scumbags, and then that's his group down below there. And I'm using my mouse cursor over top, like anybody can see that. Anyways, that is Shawn's baby right there. As far as my baby goes, it is, and give me a sec here, I'm just going to bring it up. And I don't know if I can do this properly. One sec. I will get better at this. There we go. So I am actually doing something called CWN. CWNonline.ca is the web address. This is something that has been back and forth for the better part of 10 years for me. Shawn was there, I think, from day one, I believe.
Yeah, probably.
So it's been a while. I don't know if I can find the original site, but I've always wanted to write about wrestling, be part of wrestling, interviews, everything else. And this is my contribution to the business itself. So CWNonline.ca is the best way to get in touch with me there. Social media, we're both on social media. The best way for Shawn to get in touch with him is through Facebook, and then the Scumbags of Wrestling, myself, Thursday Night Throwdown, or CWN. And anyways, yeah, it's been fun doing this. It's new year, new thing to focus on. And like I said, we just want to get bigger and better. Like I said, if you're a fan and you want to see something on the show, let me know. Thursday Night Throwdown at outlook.com, or you're a promoter, you want to be a guest, you're a wrestler, you want to be a guest. You want to just say whatever you want to say about wrestling. We're more than willing to do this. And like I said, it's been nice and quiet without Jordan James in the background there. So and Jordan, you want to be a part of this? If you're watching this, feel free. Shawn will send you the invite as well. But
anybody from Tyson Duke's Wrestle Factory, for that matter.
What's that?
Anybody from the Wrestle Factory.
Yeah, I tell you this, it was enjoyable. As loud as it was at that MWW show, it was enjoyable doing what we're doing. So anyways, share this.
We'll do it again in March.
Yes, and unofficial. I haven't heard anything officially. I did see a wrestler comment on a certain date, so I think MWW will be back sometime a couple months. You said March, right?
Yes, I've definitely been guaranteed March. As you said, there is a date out there that a wrestler did post, but until officially Midwestern Wrestling announces it, it will be March, and we have our invite to be down there, do a live broadcast, and hype up the show, post, pre, intermission, you name it, we're going to cover it, and hopefully we can also do that for other promotions throughout Ontario this year.
Yeah, maybe we'll have to do a live simulcast of the Scumbags of Wrestling podcast and Thursday Night Throwdown. So you're gonna have to teach me how to get one of those big banners, though. But anyways, it's been fun. Hopefully, Shawn, you'll be able to join us next week as well. And like I said, folks, you want to get in touch, just any ideas, or you want to be part of the show, Thursday Night Throwdown at outlook.com is the best way. We're going to sign off now. Thank you very much for watching and listening. If you're watching the rebroadcast, thank you very much for being part of it. And remember to give us a thumbs up and hit us up on Facebook. Shawn, thanks for being part of this, and we'll see you next week, hopefully.
Yeah, have a good one.